I want to actually take this project on out into the city now in different venues, and this QR code will be really, really integral to it.
And there were the three parts, weren't there?
Mm.
Do you want to tell us about those three parts and how you worked with those three parts and how you created those and what new relationships?
Yeah.
Because they're definitely about that, weren't they? It was about three parts of your. It was Birmingham, Berlin,
Yeah.
and beyond.
Yeah.
So Berlin, you came with pretty much.
Berlin, I came with. I knew all the artists pretty well. The interesting thing about this project, because I've curated a lot before, is that because only one work was ever showing at once, I wasn't thinking about how all this work or this artist relate to the other. I just thought I want 7 artists making work that will stand up by itself, that might be saleable, and that's sort of theoretically and really tight as well. Obviously, it has to be good work, not just a drawing unconnected with something. It had to be related to projects that had some integrity. And what was I saying?
The 3 bits. That was that you came with
so
Berlin.
Berlin.
But Birmingham and beyond didn't exist.
That was it.
So how,
no, it didn't.
So how did Birmingham and beyond come into existence?
So
just interested in.
So Berlin was I came with. Birmingham was then a nice excuse to go out and meet people, and that's what I really did as well. And that was actually, in a way, I did some formal studio visits, and it was perhaps the most formal approaches I've done in some ways, where I had to, and I actually asked your advice. I asked around and said to people, who do you think might be good, interesting people? So the people I already did know I used, and then I also went on to Access Web and searched in various ways that you do, and went to exhibitions, and then came up with this list. And it was really a very nice process, actually, and it did definitely, what's been really interesting is that the work from Berlin definitely created, when you see it all together, which hardly anyone does, because you only see it together if you buy a piece of work and you get to choose the next one. So it's this sort of play on the idea of the collector dictating taste. But when you see them together, definitely there was something of Berlin, but there was also something that came through of Birmingham. And then Beyond came out of, the artists were mostly from Melbourne, where I went in May for a solo exhibition of my own work. So that was sort of something I could tack on to the back of my own, so it was driven by, I was physically going there for my own practice. And then on the way back I went to Singapore and picked up another artist. So it's sort of, I in a way I don't have to go, just as I was saying before, it sort of comes through just my encounters with people and that sort of thing.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Elly Clarke Gallery and anything about that? I suppose I kind of I must make an assumption that people kind of know that project. Is there anything anyone wants to know about Elly's project?
Shall I explain it very briefly? It was basically so 7 artists from each of these places, like places beyond, I say places, but that's the exhibition. And some artists gave me more works. Generally, people gave me, from Berlin, they gave me sometimes 10 works each, so I've got actually quite a nice stock of work now. And the idea is I selected the first one, and then that was for sale, and all the works between £150 and £500 as well. And whoever bought that piece of work could have a private meeting with me where I'd actually show the physical pieces of work in a portfolio, or if they weren't in Birmingham or I wasn't, they'd get a PDF sent to them with it was like a catalogue basically, with all the other works there, information, web links, all that sort of thing. So they became not only the buyer of the first work, therefore the collector, but also the selector for the next one, out of a pre-selected bunch. So the Berlin show, I think I had nearly 30 pieces between those seven artists. Beyond, I think I've got 8. So one artist gave me 2 pieces, and the others were literally 1 per artist. But it's also this idea of things. On the one hand, I want to make things really open. On the other hand, I want to make it a point of the fact that a lot isn't open. And so it's almost like cards face down. And that's also something that I work with in my own practice. And a little bit.
Thank you. Now, your thing is different as well, isn't it?
What?
I can't remember. Your raffle thing.
Oh yes,
is different.
yes. So my raffle is conceptual.
No,
it won't be. It's a concept, but it will be real. The raffle is the prize is a single edition photo by me, signed single edition 6x4 photo, which is one of my things I work with a lot, that will be selected in response to a keyword from the winner, from my archive.
So
I will need your email address and have to make a meeting with you. So you also get to have a cup of tea with me.
There you go. And then we're going to take a break, 'cause it's getting quite warm in here, I think.
297.
That definitely exists. Yay! There you go. It is warm in here, so we're going to take a break. And you can bring a drink in here, which I didn't know last time. But in terms of what's emerged so far, is there anything that's kind of popping up in someone's mind around this project, or any connections or any differences, or just anything that's starting to percolate in terms of what's happening with this project? I'm going to take someone from the back row, because you're all being very quiet there. I quite like someone, just a thought. Oh, someone there, great. Oh, can I just give you that?
When you were selecting the work for your piece, how did you do that? Because were you thinking of getting a very general, broad selection, or was it your taste? Do you think?
Of course, it's mine. I think a curator's taste is always your taste. I think it's work that obviously, I think if you want to curate, I think curating, you're basically standing behind work, aren't you? So it's going to be aligned to what you're interested in some way. I don't think otherwise you couldn't really curate it. I think it'd be quite a strange thing to do, because you have to have some emotional attachment to a piece of work. But also I was looking for a sort of spectrum of, not all of the work in this show I would actually want to have myself, but I find it interesting. So I might be really attracted to it aesthetically, or it might be more about the ideas of the concept behind it. I was also thinking about, I chose artists whose practice was so Berlin. There was one of the artists gave me just collages, and then there was somebody who gave me lots of drawings, and then there was a photographer. So I was thinking about something that was quite broad, actually, in terms of medium, and that was the same also for the Birmingham show, and actually beyond. But what's been very interesting about this is I'm beginning to think about these sort of curated groups as portraits almost of a city, without meaning to, and actually want to try and do this in other cities as well, just by the simple act of collecting 7 artists. I don't know why 7 was the number that just sort of happened. It was very interesting, actually. And for the next 2 shows, I always had 8 artists, and then 1 dropped out last minute, so it always became 7. So the last one, I thought, is that really bad? It's going to be 8. I thought, nah, it's fine. Then, sure enough, 1 artist dropped out last minute. But something about that 7, and I think when I was in Singapore, I could certainly also have found another 6 artists from there. So, but I was really thinking about, do I like it? Is it interesting? Do I want to have a conversation about this piece? And do I want to look at it for a long time? I suppose then only at the end really did I see it, and then start to see connections together, which is quite interesting.
And are you going to be working with the connections that you've made from this?
Yes. So I mean, the weird thing is it's been quite a strange work piece also for artists to be involved with, because most of them haven't been shown at all. Mm-hmm. So they've been shown in the MAC. They can say they've been here because at the very least their websites are there, and people have been clicking on them, and people have actually noticed they've had more traffic on their site since this show has happened, which is a really interesting thing. But my plan actually is to set up a project called Frame, which will start off in the old Joint Stock pub, which I'm doing actually with Charlie Levine and Caitlin Griffiths. So we're collaborating, sort of not merging, but just continuing our projects together. And so we're having an exhibition that starts 2 days after this show finishes. And I'm actually now in discussion with hotels, and I'm thinking about who my buyers would be, and then placing these single frames into different venues. So I'm in the middle of writing an application for funding to be able to do that.
Interesting. Thank you.
So hopefully people's work will be shown then in different places.
Great.
Thank you. So it's 20 minutes.